We are gathered to honor the life of Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr., a man who taught the world that those whom society calls nobodies are in fact somebody in the eyes of God and in the struggle for justice. As a Black child in South Central Los Angeles, I attended 42nd Street Elementary, and I was asked to memorize a poem for a special guest, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. I am somebody. Those words are not abstract to me. I was a student from a low-income community, and I was labeled at risk. When Jesse Jackson said, I am somebody, he was talking to children like me, communities like mine, telling us that our lives were not accidents, that our zip codes were not our destiny, and that our dreams were not disposable. Jesse could say that with conviction because he lived it. Born out of wedlock to a single mother in Greenville, South Carolina, he knew the sting of shame, the weight of poverty, and the power of being underestimated. He rose from those beginnings on the football field as a star competitor, in the pulpit as a Baptist minister, and in the streets as a frontline soldier for civil rights, to become one of the most powerful moral voices of our lifetime. His life was a sermon. You can start in the margins and still move the center. I had the privilege of hearing his voice up close and personal in Brunswick, Georgia, as we fought for justice for Ahmaud Arbery. In that moment, he told me something I'll never forget. He said high-profile attention was not enough. If all we had were cameras and crowds, then our grief and our outrage would be wasted. We would have to channel that energy into legislative change, or it was all for naught. Jesse believed in measurable change, justice by the numbers. He could make you feel good, but then he demanded that you do good. He could move a crowd, but then he insisted that the crowd move the systems. So today I want to remember Jesse Jackson by the numbers, because he taught us that real love for our community and our people, it shows up in results. Operation Breadbasket out of Chicago helped create more than 4,500 jobs for Black workers by putting economic pressure on corporations, boycotts, picket lines, and negotiations until companies opened their doors and their payrolls. That's what I am somebody looks like in hiring statistics and paychecks. He ran for the President of the United States not once but twice. In 1984 and in 1988, he did what had once been unthinkable for a Black man in American politics. He finished second in the Democratic primary and became the first major Black male candidate with a realistic shot at the nomination. Long before the world fell in love with Yes We Can, Jesse was already walking the path that would make Barack Obama possible. He wasn't just a candidate, he was a forerunner. But his numbers were not only in campaigns and jobs. They were written on passports, prison logs, and the names of people who came home because he refused to believe that any human being was disposable. In 1984, he traveled to Syria and negotiated for the release of downed American pilot Lieutenant Robert Goodman, bringing him home to his family. That same year, he went to Cuba and persuaded Fidel Castro to release 22 American prisoners, turning what families feared would be final goodbyes into homecomings. He pressed for the freedom of hostages in the Middle East during hijackings and conflicts, inserting a moral voice where only military and political calculations seemed to matter. And in the early 1990s, on the eve of war, he went to Iraq and negotiated with Saddam Hussein face-to-face to free Americans who were being used as pawns and human shields. He walked into that dangerous meeting with no weapons, but with words and moral authority. And then he walked out with American lives. When 3 American soldiers were captured in Belgrade during the Kosovo crisis, it was Jesse Jackson who went and sat down with a hostile regime and emerged with 3 soldiers free. He turned his pulpit into a passport and his faith into a form of diplomacy. Those aren't just numbers, those are lives. Each one of somebody. At home, he understood that we could not win justice on one front alone. So he built a national rainbow coalition to unite Black, brown, white working class people, women, LGBTQ communities, farmers, the urban poor, and the anti-war left. He knew that racism, poverty, and war, they were all braided together, and that our movement had to be braided together too. He did not just assemble audiences, he assembled coalitions. He showed us that unity is not sentimental, it's strategic. And that Jesse Jackson was an orator. He could make words dance, he could make crowds move, he could make children like me believe that we mattered. But his life insists on a harder truth. Inspiration without transformation is just not enough. He measured his ministry and jobs created, students registered to vote, hostages released, coalition built, and laws changed. He would make you chant, "I am somebody," and then he would say, "Okay, somebody, what are you going to do with your power?" I have a note for the praises offered to Jesse by Donald Trump, and a suggestion for what he can do with those praises. Jesse was a champion of affirmative action. The Rainbow Coalition, you remember? A man who devoted his ministry to lifting Black people, poor people, workers, and the marginalized. That's worked in direct conflict with Donald Trump's attack on DEI, his attack on voting rights, and basic democratic norms. Jesse loved Africa so much that he served as an envoy building bridges with nations that Donald Trump deemed whole countries. Jesse called Donald Trump dangerous because he treated the presidency as a personal business venture, violating the Constitution, using race-baiting tactics in fear to divide the nation, and he turned his public office into a stage for self-promotion instead of service. In my fraternity, we believe that friendship is essential to the soul, and Jesse was my friend. He was a friend to the poor, to the forgotten, and to those the world called nobody. But he wasn't a friend to a race baiter. He wasn't a friend to a man who uses racial fears to stoke division. He was no friend to those who would profit off our pain. We will not let anyone, no matter how powerful, use his death as a prop. Today we honor Jesse Jackson as he was, a disciplined organizer, a fearless truth teller, and a moral leader who never confused access to power with allegiance to it. So as we honor him, I return to the poem he taught us. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be from a broken home, but I am somebody. I may be from a low-income community, but I am somebody. I may be a child that they called at risk, but I am somebody. Because of Jesse Jackson, we know that somebody can become a freedom fighter. Somebody can run for president. Somebody can bring hostages home. Somebody can build a coalition that changes a nation. Today, we thank God for that Greenville, South Carolina, gave us this child born out of wedlock who refused to be a statistic. We thank God that he took the hurt of his early life and turned them into a ministry of hope and hard work. We thank God he loved the least, the last, and the lost enough to demand more than speeches, to demand results. The best way to honor our dear brother is not just with our tears or our applause, but with our choices. To keep counting the numbers that matter: votes cast, laws passed, jobs created, students protected, lives saved. To keep saying I am somebody, and then to act like we believe that every single person that we meet is somebody too. Rest now, dear brother. We'll take it from here. And in your memory, we will keep marching, organizing, negotiating, and building that rainbow until justice by the numbers is no longer the exception, but the rule.